What is going on, community? Welcome to the Flash by Night channel. If you have been here before, welcome back. Tonight we are doing something different. I want to try a different form or format for keeping up with the comics. So go ahead, hit that like button, and we will be right back to check it out. Once again, welcome back. It's Flash by Night, and as I said before, we are trying a new format for keeping up with the comics. If you have not checked out Keeping Up with the Comics before, it's just a show where I review some of the comics that I'm reading. But I want to try and do it face to face instead of the way I was doing it before, which is kind of having the camera kind of face down at the comic and kind of showing page for page, panel for panel what's going on. I'm not sure if that was catching on or not, but I want to do something more face to face. And tonight we are going to review Abbott 1973, issue number 1, Miles Morales Spiderman, issue number 23, Thor number 12, and everyone's favorite book from the past couple of weeks, Berserker number 1. So here we go. So our first book of the night is Abbott 1973, issue number 1. And basically the synopsis for the book is that Abbott is a reporter for the Detroit Chronicle. And in 1973, Detroit is on the verge of electing its first black mayor. And there are forces out there in Detroit that don't want this to happen. And it was a pretty good read to me, a pretty good start to the story. As I understand, Abbott 1973 is the second installment of Elena Abbott, who is our primary character. It's the second story of Elena Abbott in Detroit as what they're calling the Lightbringer. Yes, the Lightbringer. Elena Abbott is going to take down Noel, guys. I got to jump on it. This is the real crossover. No, but seriously, it's a pretty good story. There is a cult or an occult, not sure of the difference, in Detroit called Umbra, and they are basically behind the push to stop the first black mayor. Also, we get introduced to her girlfriend Amelia, who has some looks like she's in some illegal things, but she's trying to straighten her life up. They hadn't exactly said what it is yet, but that's kind of part of the story. Also part of the story is the Detroit Chronicle's new editor-in-chief, Mr. Manning, who's also a Marine Corps vet. And I'm sorry to say, but Abbott 1973 ticked one of my boxes. There are no ex-Marines. Most people don't know that, so I won't hold too much of that against Saladin Ahmed, who is the writer of this story and right now writes one of my other favorite books. But yeah, you should check this out if you have a chance. It's Black woman, 1973, basically best in her position at her job. So there are things that go on, certain social messages about African Americans and women. So you should expect that. But I think it's still a pretty good story, and I want to see where it goes. I also have issue 2, and as soon as I check that out, I'll bring that to you also. So the next book we'll be reviewing is Miles Morales Spider-Man, issue 23 by Saladin Ahmed and Carmen Hanero. It is a King in Black tie-in, which kind of follows up issue number 22, where after Miles's adventure in that book, Genki Lee basically tells Miles that Brooklyn Visions has been evacuated, and Miles looks out the window of his dorm room to see why the evacuation happened, and there is a symbiote dragon pretty much dragging Miles into the King in Black story. Now, the book was pretty quick, pretty fast read, but it did feature one of my favorite sequences of this book since the title started. And so it reminds us that in Absolute Carnage, Miles himself was taken over by a symbiote, but he kind of got the symbiote off of him using his Venom Blast. And if you've been keeping up with King in Black, you know that traditional means don't hurt no much, if at all. But things like lightning and light do hurt him. And so Miles has kind of a advantage in a way. So we open up to see Miles see the dragon and go and try and distract the dragon, help people get out of the way. And once he confronts the dragon and figures out that the dragon is a symbiote, he basically uses his Venom Blast. But once he uses his Venom Blast, if you can see, the dragon is now kind of docile and in truth reminds me of Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon. And so he and the dragon get along basically. And then they go back to the middle of Brooklyn to go and help other people and see if there are any more threats. And we find out why Kamala Khan's hand is here punching Miles in the face on the cover. It's because Kamala Khan has been taken over by a symbiote. Of course, there's a fight with them, but Miles doesn't want to fight her. And they eventually come to a solution, but I will leave that for you to read. I would suggest picking this up because the ending is really, really interesting, considering the fact that we are also 2 issues away from Miles's own Clone Saga. So I really want to see how the ending of this book and whatever happens in number 24 affects the Clone Saga to come. The next book we are going to review, and also a good read, is Thor number 12 by Donny Cates and Nick Klein. And this was a really, really good read in my opinion. It actually does not feature Thor Odinson in the story. Instead, it picks up where Thor number 11 left off with Throg, the frog version of Thor, and Lockjaw kind of showing up to confront this physical incarnation of Donald Blake. And they do a really, really good piece of writing, and they start off having me fooled because they start off making you think that Throg may have already passed away and that the story was over before it began. And so you have Throg on the table being dissected, or so we think, as they kind of wax poetic about Throg and how brave he was and the stories that they're going to tell. And then immediately on the next page, you find out that that's actually a regular frog on the dissecting table in someone's school, while Throg is basically giving Donald Blake those hands and that little hammer. And that's basically how half the book goes, is a fight between Donald Blake and Throg, which is pretty brutal for a fight between Thor's alter ego and a frog with a hammer. But then you find out that Donald Blake's real plan was not to fight Throg and Lockjaw, but it was to get a hold of Doctor Strange and find out some more roots to Thor and Odin's secrets. And he really did get down to the roots, because what he found and what he went after later on in the book was, is it Yggdrasil, the world tree? I believe that's how you pronounce it. So that's what Donald Blake went after towards the end of the book. And Jane Foster, Valkyrie, has only one choice, and that's to go find the one person that can put this son and son rivalry to rest before it destroys the 10 realms. And so she goes and finds Odin. Last but not least, of course, we have mostly everyone's favorite pick this week. It is Berserker issue number 1. And I picked up I think it's the Mark Brooks variant. I really wasn't going to pick up this book, but there were a few sitting on the shelf at the store, and I went ahead and snagged one to see if it was worth the hype. And I'll tell you, it was a pretty good book. Everything people say about it, how much violence there is, how much action there is very true. This kind of half man, half God is going around helping the government in exchange for knowledge about his past. He is letting them basically clone him to make probably better genetic soldiers, and he doesn't care. He just wants to A, be mortal again, and B, find out about his past. Now, for anybody who's into that type of thing, I think it is a good book to pick up and keep reading, but it's not quite my cup of tea. I didn't think it would be, but I picked it up to give it a shot. But I probably won't get issue 2. But like I say, if you're into action, if you're into blood and gore, if you're into that kind of thing, this may be your book. So go ahead and give it a try. And that, boys and girls, is what I'm reading. And I've got to say, I've got 4 pretty good books, even though I may not pick up number 2 of Berserker. As I said before, it's probably up a lot of people's alleys. And if it's their thing, you should go pick it up, but I may not. But the other 3 books, Miles Morales Spiderman, Thor, and Abbott 1973, I'm going to continue to read and continue to see where those stories take me. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you saw something you liked. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want to keep up with me, keeping up with the comics, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, do all the good YouTube things, and of course, leave comments. But as always, love yourself, love others, read your books, and I will be back in a flash.